I would always tell them guys in there, every day, I'm going home. I'm going home.
A second chance for a man who spent most of his adult life behind bars. The Supreme Court decision that made it all possible.
They're off.
They call it the Super Bowl of horse racing, the big ticket event taking over Del Mar this weekend. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. San Diego Christian College students pay about $30,000 a year. The Santee School bills itself as one of the top Christian colleges in Southern California. But an iNewsSource investigation finds the school can account for $20 million in expenses. iNewsSource reporter Megan Wood has details.
About 700 students attend San Diego Christian, a private nonprofit college that offers dozens of traditional and online degree programs, from business management to biblical studies. But poor finances have some doubting the college's future. Students complain of a lack of facilities and overworked professors. Staff feel they were underpaid, and a previous vendor, Taylor Maddox, claims the school often fell behind on payments.
Our whole relationship with the college, they were probably perpetually like 80 grand behind in payments.
An iNewsSource review of financial documents found San Diego Christian College failed to account for more than $20 million in expenses from fiscal 2012 to 2014, money that was supposed to be detailed on its public tax returns. The college chief financial officer, Steve Cheney, declined an on-camera interview, but told iNewsSource he can't remember where millions of dollars went. Now, the college is refusing to turn over any documentation. Money problems at the school have been mounting. A regional accrediting agency raised concerns about the college's financial planning and what it called a very sketchy multi-year budget. The U.S. Department of Education also issued San Diego Christian College a failing financial score in 2014, and an outside audit found nearly a dozen deficiencies. Efforts to talk to the president and the board of trustees about the findings were met with a cease and desist request from the school's attorney. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Megan Wood.
To read more about this investigation and to find out if your private college is considered financially stable, go to iNewsSource.org. iNewsSource is an independently funded media partner of KPBS. One of the leaders of President Trump's 2016 campaign is under federal indictment of conspiracy and other charges. These are the first criminal charges in Robert Mueller's probe of Russian interference in the election. AP reporter Tracy Brown details the charges and the president's response.
Special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election revealed its first targets Monday, with a former campaign advisor to President Donald Trump admitting he lied to the FBI about his contacts with Russians. The guilty plea by the former advisor George Papadopoulos marked the first criminal count that cites interactions between Trump campaign associates and Russian intermediaries during the campaign. Papadopoulos' plea occurred on October the 5th and was unsealed Monday. Separately, Trump's former campaign manager Paul Manafort and a former Manafort business associate, Rick Gates, were indicted on felony charges of conspiracy against the United States and other counts. Manafort and Gates surrendered to federal authorities Monday and pled not guilty to the charges in a Washington court. The charges against Manafort and Gates contend the men acted as unregistered foreign agents for Ukrainian interests. Manafort's indictment doesn't reference the Trump campaign or make any allegations about coordination between the Kremlin and the president's aides to influence the outcome of the election in Trump's favor. The indictment does allege a criminal conspiracy was continuing through February of this year after Trump had taken office. Trump quickly tweeted that the alleged misdeeds by his former campaign chairman were years ago, and he insisted there was no collusion between his campaign and Russia. Tracy Brown, Associated Press.
Our coverage on the federal investigation into possible ties between the Trump campaign and Russia continues on air and online at kpbs.org. We'll have more analysis tonight on PBS NewsHour. That starts at 7 right here on KPBS. A federal judge is blocking President Trump's order to keep transgender men and women out of the military. The president announced the new policy over the summer. He claims the medical costs and disruption to troop cohesion would be too high. The judge at the center of today's ruling says there is no solid evidence backing those claims and that those suing Trump's administration are likely to win. The Breeders' Cup, the Super Bowl of horse racing, is taking place for the first time at the Del Mar racetrack this weekend. And KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says horse racing is on the decline, but big events like this still attract plenty of fans and plenty of money.
They're off in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Tickets for the Breeders' Cup can cost upward of $1,000, but they're all sold out for the big day on Saturday. Joe Harper, president of the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club, says the Breeders' Cup is a big deal, and ever since the first one in the 1980s, he's been thinking about how to improve the Del Mar racetrack so they can host it.
In the time between the first Breeders' Cup, we built a new grandstand and new race courses and made over $100 million worth of improvements, and always at the back of our minds was this day coming up. So it's really cool.
The fastest horses in the world are coming to Del Mar to compete for a $28 million purse. Harper says many of the people coming to the event have never been to Del Mar, so it's bringing in many well-heeled visitors. Some estimates put the economic impact on the San Diego region at over $75 million. However, horse racing as a sport is on the decline for many reasons, and a conference today is hoping to address one of them, a lack of investors interested in owning a racehorse. A couple of hundred people came to the Thoroughbred Owners Conference in Del Mar because it turns out you don't have to be a millionaire to own a winning horse. Billy Koch is founder of Little Red Feather Racing, a syndicate that helps people buy a share of a horse.
Well, it's just so much more affordable and a lot less risk, obviously. So you can have as much fun as you can as a 100% owner, but you don't have all the financial burdens of owning a racehorse, and you still get to go out to the track and bring your friends and bring your family and really enjoy the day.
The winner of the Breeders' Cup Classic stands to win $3.3 million. The races start on Friday, and you can still get general admission tickets to the track as long as you don't need a seat in the stands. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
We're learning new details tonight on the extent of the hepatitis A emergency in San Diego. 2 cases of hepatitis A in Colorado have now been linked to the outbreak here. The Denver Post reports the cases were diagnosed over the summer in El Paso County. The San Diego outbreak has also spread to the Phoenix area. That's where more than a dozen cases were reported earlier this month. In San Diego, county staff and community partners have administered nearly 84,000 Hep A vaccinations. 3 cases of meningitis at San Diego State University. County health authorities are working to stop the spread. Health officials say the viral strain is not as contagious as the bacterial counterpart. Countywide, there were 139 cases reported last year, and 2014 was the most recent peak year with 329 cases. The infection typically resolves itself without treatment within 10 weeks. County health officials advise students and staff to adopt safe practices, including washing hands frequently and not sharing food or smoking materials. California's Department of Health is looking into the quality of communication with people who speak languages other than English. HCS has hired a lead employee to explore the matter. The department's director, Jennifer Kent, says the new addition will spearhead the evaluation of current interpretation services for Medi-Cal patients.
This individual will be the subject matter expert working with our procurement team about how do we go out and retain an outside consultant to kind of do the serious kind of peer review study and what else has been done in other states and how does the financing work.
Residents in City Heights, which has a large immigrant population, have been calling for better services for years. A push to toughen up California's criminal justice reform laws is one step closer to appearing on the ballot next fall. A group of lawmakers, prosecutors, law enforcement officers, and victims' rights advocates filed a statewide ballot initiative today to prevent the early release of criminals convicted of violent crimes. Assemblyman Jim Cooper of Elk Grove says he's taking the measure to California's voters because Democratic leaders repeatedly stonewalled legislation to enact similar changes.
Human trafficking of a child, rape of a woman, I mean, that's just, when it polls at 90%, this measure will pass. So it's just, you know, we could have done this in the legislature. Folks didn't want to fix it, so we're here and left with this.
Supporters of the Public Safety Initiative need to gather more than 365,000 signatures by mid-April for it to go on the November 2018 ballot. San Diego is set to dedicate more resources to DUI prevention. Today, law enforcement officials announced plans to better monitor DUI offenders. The San Diego County Probation Department has received a $500,000 state grant to help with these efforts. County officials say the money will allow for more pop-up home searches and random drug and alcohol testing. Officials say it comes down to public safety. Nationally, 1/3 of drivers arrested or convicted of drunk driving are repeat offenders. From life without parole to life outside of prison for the first time as an adult. 5 years after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down mandatory life without parole sentences for juveniles convicted of murder, Bobby Hines from Detroit is trying to make amends and move beyond his crime. AP reporter Mike Householder has more.
The first few steps of freedom, ones Bobby Hines could hardly believe he was taking.
I thought I was finished. Got a new start.
Hines' release follows a 2016 Supreme Court ruling that extended a ban on mandatory life without parole for juvenile offenders to those already in prison.
Do we just cage people after they are involved in something hideous?
Ushering in a wave of new sentencing hearings around the country.
I made a bad choice.
Hines' took place in the same Detroit courthouse where a jury found a 15-year-old Hines guilty of murder nearly 3 decades ago.
Does he feel like we on the runaway?
6 months later, with his sister Myra Jessie at his side, Hines heads home.
I would always tell them guys in there, every day, I'm going home. I'm going home. I said, I don't know what y'all doing. I'm going home.
As excited as he is to be out.
Can you take pictures on that, Myra? Take some. Take some of me right now.
Hines knows he's starting over with no money, no job history, and no experience living as an adult in society.
But everything is all good, though. It's all about living now.
It's a transition hundreds of juvenile lifers will be making in the coming years.
They did provide you with a resume?
As corrections officials and others help inmates who grew up in prison find their footing on the outside.
Keep pushing that different thing.
A world they were told they would never see again.
This person thought they were going to die in prison. Now here they are dressed, you know, like any of us are dressed and coming out into the society, and we're talking about where we want to go for lunch.
Following a hearty first post-prison meal, Hines heads to his sister's house and a picnic table in the backyard, where he breaks out a collection of his poems and writings that Hines says kept him sane while locked up.
Time is fire and wrath. Time is Mr. James Warren that I killed on the block.
Hines still struggles to come to grips with his role in the 1989 fatal shooting of 21-year-old James Warren. He wasn't the gunman, but prosecutors branded him the ringleader, arguing he'd provoked 2 other teens when the trio confronted the victim.
I'm angry at myself for allowing my ignorance to lead me down that road.
Oh, we forgive them.
It also continues to weigh heavily on Warren's sister, who urged the judge to release Hines at the resentencing hearing in March.
I wish he could take it back. I wish that for him. I can't say that it would bring my brother back.
But a meeting could offer some closure.
I'm hoping to get an opportunity to see him.
I would like to, apologize to him and thank them for giving me a second chance.
After a few weeks of freedom, Hines gets the chance to deliver his message in person.
I don't never want to forget what I was a part of, so I always say that I did it because I know. deep in my heart, I could have stopped it.
For nearly 3 hours, Hines and Valencia Warren Gibbs talk about everything from technology.
I didn't have not one day with a problem adjusting. Now, I have problems learning the phone and working the credit cards and stuff.
To romance.
So are you going to date?
Oh, yeah, I'm dating right now.
Well, darn, for real?
But they mainly stick to the 28-year-old event that altered the course of their lives and brought them together.
I just wanted you out.
Right.
I wanted this over.
Right.
I wanted you to get beyond that.
Their long-awaited meeting nearly complete. All that's left is to pose for pictures and say their goodbyes.
Give me my hug, because we...
All right.
At least for now.
I got you, though.
Mike Householder, Associated Press, Detroit.
UC San Diego is launching a program to help underrepresented students succeed in science majors. KPBS education reporter Megan Burks says the professor leading the effort is uniquely qualified. Here's his story.
So my name is Gentry Patrick, and I'm a professor in the Division of Biological Sciences in the section of neurobiology. I'm also the Director of Mentorship and Diversity for the Division of Biological Sciences. You would have not predicted that I would be a full professor here at UCSD today in neuroscience. In part because, my mom had me at 16 years old. I grew up in inner city, South Central LA. First to go to college in my family. No one knew about science. I didn't have any neuroscientists, family members or friends of the family to emulate and to ask questions. Just this interest in learning was fundamental. If I had not had a true passion for the learning process in general, I think that I would have not be on this trajectory. And for me, if I look back at my life, it was having these amazing mentors in high school, outside of high school. My mom, very young, having me at such a young age, right? But she was extremely dedicated to me getting a good education. In fact, she consistently talked about, Gentry, you have to use education. That's the only way that you're going to be able to get out of this. I got to Berkeley in 1988, I remember. I gained a temporary employment for the Employment Development Department, and I just had a little summer job there. And my job was to look at applicants and provide little summer work for them. And it just so happened a job came along for a research lab, washing dishes. And I sent myself on that interview. I don't think you were supposed to do that, but that's what I did. And I got the job. And the guy was a professor at UC Berkeley, but he owned a private company, and I was working in his private company. So I had working in a research lab, and I also was able to get paid. And that began to provide some stability in my life. A very important part of the trajectory of my success was being accepted into a terminal master's program at UC San Francisco. I applied to this program, and they only took 2 students a year. I spent an hour on the phone convincing the lead professor who ran the program that he should take a chance on me. He's like, you have such good MCAT scores and GREs, but your grades are poor, which makes us think that you were just lazy, right? And I said, there's a reason. I had to work. I didn't have good study skills. I had too many other things that I had to attend to. I couch surfed semester to semester. I could have just given up. I could have just said, wow, okay, I guess I'll try something different. But I assured him that he should give me a shot and that he would not regret it. And we joke to this day that, like, what if I had said no, Gentry, this would all be, we wouldn't be here today. And that's a kind of a great example of someone looking beyond the grades, making sure that the capacity for success is there, but looking at all the other more salient aspects, right? Access for students from diverse backgrounds is a prominent goal of mine. And I want my colleagues to see that for minimal effort, they can make such a big difference in the lives of students. You know, a lot of times these students, you spend an hour with them, and that may be fundamental to them choosing to stick the course or move on.
That was UC San Diego professor Gentry Patrick speaking to KPBS reporter Megan Burks.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, children left behind to raise themselves in rural China. That's Monday on the PBS News Hour.
California is now the third most bike-friendly state in the country. That's according to the League of American Bicyclists, an advocacy group which compiles a list annually. 9 years ago, California was ranked 19th in the nation, but Caltrans officials say funds generated from the incoming gas tax will nearly double the amount of money available for bike and pedestrian projects and help California move up the rankings.
Transportation projects unfortunately can't come in right overnight, but it is going to be able to go towards a lot more local projects out there. And we've gotten a lot of interest from cities and counties wanting to do these projects, and it's always been there's never been enough funding for them. So this nice boost should be a good thing.
The state gas tax goes into effect Wednesday. It's expected to generate $52 billion over the next decade. Trick-or-treaters, layer up. Crisp autumn weather arrives in San Diego. Jeff Cornish has more on possible showers this week in tonight's forecast.
A week ago, we were sweating and we were near record warmth. Now it's a very different story with a light onshore breeze, much cooler air. I think this is our friend. As we deal with the extra moisture, there will be some low clouds and a little bit of spotty drizzle possible late tonight. It shouldn't be widespread, though. And later in the week, especially by this weekend, rain showers will enter our forecast in some areas. It's quiet now, though. Satellite does show some action, even a few sprinkles into parts of the Sierras there in central California. But that's going to stay to our north. The tail of this system is not robust enough to bring us much beyond maybe 3 or 4 extra clouds. There are some low clouds, though, unrelated to that, just tied to that onshore breeze tonight. Spotty drizzle and 63 your anticipated low. As we look elsewhere, you'll get down to around 55 at Ramona, 61 in Borrego Springs, and a cool 44 in Campo near the international border. And the pleasant, cool breeze continues to be a nice thing through Tuesday. It's going to be a nice onshore breeze. Temperatures down, 80 in Borrego Springs. Mount Laguna, 58 tomorrow. We'll be up around 69, maybe near 70 for the coast. But that's a nice step down from last week when we were deep into the upper 90s in some spots, at least in some parts of California. The late week forecast, pretty much the status quo, remaining pleasant, at least through Thursday. Extra clouds will arrive on Friday. And then, I'll step aside, there are some showers entering the forecast on Saturday. Temperatures very consistent, near 50 for lows after tonight, 54. But again, near highs will be near 70 degrees. Not a whole lot of movement. There will be low clouds every morning, giving way to some sunshine. Inland areas, low to mid 70s, eventually ramping up to the mid 70s. Into Friday, low clouds break for sunshine, and then the showers roll in into Saturday's forecast. As we step a little farther east into the mountains, we're consistent in the upper 50s, mid 50s by Saturday. And by Sunday, we'll see some scattered showers in some of those mountainous locations. The deserts, a nicer 80-degree high, more easily tolerated, and it looks pretty good out there. I'm Jeff Cornish for KPBS News. Enjoy this cooler weather.
Halloween is almost here. Tomorrow night, thousands of kids will be hitting San Diego streets looking for candy. But where is the best place to go? KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman tells us about one local community getting high praise.
According to the real estate firm Home Union, this neighborhood in South Coronado was ranked the 9th best spot in the country to trick or treat. Now they looked at things like median home prices and neighborhood safety. But hey, stats aside, we wanted to see if this neighborhood really lived up to the hype. Houses like this one opted for more traditional decorations, while others were more unique. This house on Glorieta Boulevard features a Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead display. The owners here don't give out candy, instead these festive cookies.
That's what we give out.
After driving around and knocking on doors, people living in the neighborhood told us we had to come to Margarita Street, so we did, and found this place.
Halloween is just, my mom goes nuts in Halloween.
Meet the Bernard family.
Yeah, every time after school I just come back and there's always like 1 or 2 people just taking pictures.
For the last 4 years, this family has been running a popular haunted house.
We made the mistake the first year of handing out handfuls of candy, and then we ran out really quickly. Last year, we just did 1 piece at a time, and I had 3,000 pieces, and we went through all of it.
It takes the Bernards around 2 weeks to set up their decorations, and the family believes Coronado deserves to be a top trick-or-treating spot.
Everyone just goes insane. They're like, Halloween, gotta prepare. I think there's like 2 other haunted houses, one that's actually pretty scary.
If you're thinking about visiting Coronado, beware. The Bernards say it gets so busy here that the city closes off their street.
There's buses, there's big vans of people. They come from all over because it's a really safe, fun place to trick-or-treat. So.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, Democrats target an iconic conservative stronghold in California and the San Diego Republican who's up for re-election. And on Midday Edition, celebrating magical women on Halloween. Meet the woman behind Literary Witches tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us.